Hi, this is Dale Peterson, and welcome to the Unsolicited Response Show. This is the live edition we try to do every month to cover the last month in review, the February month in review. So we'll hit the top three stories, wins, fails, and predictions. Before we get to that, just while people are getting online here, and please, as always, we like to see that you're online. Post, say hi or something like that. We'll take your questions and comments as the show goes on. But let me give you a little S4 news just as everyone gets online here. We're getting close. We're less than 2 months. S4 X22 is April 19th through the 21st in Miami South Beach. If you don't have your ticket yet, you should get it this week because I got to look at the counts, but I think we're either at or over 500. We'll up the ticket price to the 500 plus price on Friday because I'm sure we'll be over it by then. So looks like a great crowd. I mean, the people that are coming, the sessions, it should be a good gathering. I know we're all hungry to get back together, talk to each other, have some fun, and make some progress. A couple of things have happened since I last was on. One is that we have Alan Friedman and Ginger Wright of INL. Alan Friedman is with CISA now. They're going to do a 2-hour S-bomb exercise on stage 3 on Wednesday. So we added that. That's something new. Given everything going on in the world, I wouldn't be surprised if we have some late breaking sessions added. Hopefully they will not be tragic sessions. Hopefully there'll be lessons learned sessions on what succeeded. But we've kept a couple of spots open for that. And then on a funner note, or more fun note, we have a karaoke stage. And people that go up on the karaoke stage get an S4 limited edition karaoke shirt. So if you if you want to get up on stage and sing, you can go to the social page and actually pick out your song and reserve your spot. So that's the S4 news I have. We'll get into the show now. My guest for the February month in review is Chris Sistrunk. He is a technical manager for Mandiant. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how's it going, Dale?
You know, I always think of you when I'm putting together the music for S4 this year. There's one block on, or there's a couple of blocks on one day where I'm trying to pick ICS security related songs, and lineman for the county, or Wichita, what's it actually
Wichita
called?
lineman, yeah.
Wichita Lineman by Glenn Campbell. Every time I hear that song, I think about you. I was like, I wish you were speaking this year because I would play that right before you speak. But I figure that's a classic song.
Oh
Are we
yeah.
going to get you up on the karaoke stage?
Oh yeah. Did you know I used to be a choir director?
I didn't. I knew you were a
Yeah.
musician. I knew you play the guitar, but I didn't know you
Yeah.
were a choir director.
Yeah, I was a choir director for 5 years at my home church. So, uh, small town, and it's like, hey, you know how to do music. You're in band. You're voluntold. You're a choir director.
Well, that's good.
And
Well,
so,
at least we'll have some quality up there. I think we've had a few people that are quite enthusiastic, but it should be fun. People have asked for it for years, and if people do want to bring an instrument, we'll mic up their instruments. We won't have instruments there, but if Jonathan Pole wants to play a saxophone, we'll mic it up,
yeah, he'd be
and
one.
such.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the show. We've got 3 stories this year or this month. The first one, kind of a tragic ongoing story, the invasion of Ukraine and what that means. I wrote an article yesterday, proposing some questions that we might want to look at after the dust has settled. I really, it's almost like the dirty Harry line. A man's got to know his limitations. I am not a political expert. I am not a war expert. I don't think anyone is a cyber conflict expert at this point. We just haven't had enough of it to have real experts. So I hate to predict anything, but obviously our hopes and prayers are with everyone over there. In these early days, is there anything ICS security related that you're pulling out from what's going on over there?
Well, first of all, like you said, Dale, our hearts and minds are with every Ukrainian right now.
Mhm.
And our colleague Marina and a few others that are in ICS security. even if you're not in Ukraine, our hearts and prayers and thoughts are with you all. But going back to your question, Dale, I've been paying attention to the response and how the electric grid, Ucanergo, and all of those subsidiary companies, the distribution companies, the generation companies, have worked on their plan for quite a while now. And I'm just watching that Twitter from Ucanergo every day where they've got an update. This is how much megawatts we're uh, having that constant update. If you didn't know, for those viewers who are watching, they segmented their grid for the nation from the connections with Russia and Belarus, and they're working their island to their own selves right now. And yesterday they were accepted to be uh, able to be connected with the European grid, ENTSO-E. If you follow that abbreviation on Twitter, they have that same Twitter handle. Um, hats off to everyone involved to has been preparing for that. As far as cybersecurity wise, uh, I don't know firsthand because I'm not involved with firsthand, but I know that there are definitely some preparations and disaster recovery plans that are in place. They seem to be. Even the official announcement from European Grid yesterday mentioned the cybersecurity was part of that. Um, and with others too, rail, there's been some, impacts there. We've been looking at satellite. We've been looking at those instances. We've been also like the TV station. They already planned that their TV towers were going to be attacked and swapped over to their backups. And just really proud of all the hard work that's gone into that. Now, as far as cybersecurity threats, all I can do is speculate, and all I can do is say there. I would, if I were them, I would have been expecting cyber intrusions to all the way to wiper malware, destructive malware.
Yeah, it'll. I think that was what you brought up was impressive. I think Stephen Baer in Germany said that connection to the European grid was planned, but I couldn't tell if it had been moved up or it was the scheduled date. But even to do it amongst all this, whether it was scheduled or moved up or whatever, it was just hugely impressive. Even just the mental discipline to say, I need to focus on this very difficult task, very precise task, and achieve it. With everything going on is so impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. They announced it on February 16th that they were going to disconnect on the 24th.
Okay.
Through the 26th. And it just so happened to be perfect timing, imperfect timing, I should say it that way. Yeah. But it's a terribly unfortunate tragedy. But
yeah. Brian Singer brought up something interesting, and we'll have to see. He was talking about whether the electric utility in particular in Ukraine had learned something from the 2015-16 attacks and whether they did some preemptive things like move some things to manual and did some disconnections and things of that nature, because they were capable of running in manual for many, many months after the 2015 incident, whether they learned some of those things and they said, look, we just can't rely on our automation systems or such. I don't know if we'll ever learn the secret of that, but I think that'll be an interesting thing if we do.
No, yeah, I also expect, in addition to having manual mode, I would expect to have them completely segmenting IT and OT as a blanket. I would expect that to be severed if necessary.
Yeah. But I mean, you could even think of things. Well, that kind of shifts me to the U.S. side. The other thing I've been kind of watching, and again, it's probably for later analysis, but how successful efforts like Shields Up and other things the government has done are. I looked at a lot of the advice there, and it was pretty much just good security practice. The one thing I saw that I thought in the Shields Up that was a little bit different was, and this is a quote, if using ICS, conduct a test of manual control to ensure that critical functions remain operable if the organization's network is unavailable. Now, I don't know. I don't know if they meant organization's network, if they meant their corporate network, or if the ICS network was unavailable. I mean, I'm not really sure what they meant there, but that is unusual. That's different than typical cyber hygiene kind. But everything else was just basic cyber hygiene sort of thing, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure the value of that.
Well, in the SCADA system for a transmission or distribution company, you can lose SCADA and the
Yeah,
substations will still work as normal.
yeah.
So maybe they were talking about that as well. But yeah, I would expect the loss of IT completely shouldn't matter, shouldn't affect control system side at all.
Well, that could
Um,
be though part of the Colonial Pipeline fallout, right?
yeah, and just other things that are now. Yeah, we got Oracle, we got stuff in the cloud, we got you know who name it, what so all those indirect impacts to control systems, uh, that's something that we need to watch, and that also kind of led into, in addition to like the Shields Up, which I think is great, and that's a kind of looking toward my win for last month, is also like what we did
Hey,
at
wait,
Mandy.
too early for wins. Save your win.
Okay, all right, fine. Sorry about that,
But
but
yeah, one of the things though that when you think about advice, and I think we'll put Brian's Owen's comment back up here. One of the things I thought about is, well, if you were going to, so Shields Up to me is kind of like a hurricane alert, right? You got to do it, right? I can't blame them for doing Shields Up. You got to do it. You got to say, hey, a hurricane's coming. You probably have to overdo it, right? You have to pound it, pound it, pound it, because some people aren't going to listen. But in the ICS side, I was saying, well, if you know you're about to be attacked, do you want to look at removing your attack pass? So I would say you would probably want to disconnect remote access. Brian Owen has the alternate hypothesis. Perhaps remote access to ICS is more important than ever. I would say the ability to flip on remote access might be more important than ever. But I
yeah.
would have it off with the ability to flip a switch and turn it on. But that, or even if you're talking about electric or a lot of other systems, backup control centers. Maybe I island my backup control center and it's basically a warm standby, disconnected for everything. Try to reduce the propagation and movement where it's not necessary. What about going to all my controllers and make sure they're in run mode, not program mode? There's certain things, maybe even disabling some automation and saying this small part of it, we're going to make it just be manual. I just wonder if for Shields Up ICS in the future, there could be more ICS specific guidance. I hadn't really thought about that, but just thinking about it for 5 minutes, I thought about a few things, and there's probably more.
Yeah, we covered that a little bit in our the white paper that Matthew McWhird and our team at Mandiant did. It was I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you got a chance to read it at all, but it's basically technical things. Hey, here's how to back up, do a system state on your Active Directory, uh, but also had things about when there is a remote access from IT to OT, make sure that your two factors there, or
Yeah,
segmentation
but
completely, or in those
but
instances.
wouldn't see those were the things that were in there, and I guess I would say, how is that different than anything else? You
Yeah,
always would want two-factor remote
yeah.
authentication. You always would
Well,
want segmentation. So they're saying, hey, just make sure these are the good practice. Make sure you're doing them. I
I
think
would.
that you have to do that. Again, like the hurricane warning, you have to do that. But
Yeah,
I think there's room for specific, you're going to be under attack. You might want to take a degraded operating posture, but be more secure, is I guess what I'm saying.
right. And to Brian's thing is like uh, not allowing visitors.
Yeah.
things like that. Physical security too. I
Yeah.
remember during pandemic, that's why remote access has kind of been more important than ever due to the pandemic. But they didn't let the operators go home until they figured out a way to do that. Because if operators get this is sidetracking a little bit to
Yeah.
getting infected with an unknown disease, then we don't have enough spare operators on hand. Then it could be hurting. So, but yeah, absolutely, I would have a checklist for physical and cyber, controls,
Yeah.
hardening.
Yeah, I mean that might be something for the community to think about a little bit is what are some and I think you have to realize that this may make you less efficient, less automated, um, maybe in some cases even less reliable, but more resilient to a long-term outage. Like you might have to say, like if you island the backup control center, well then there are some cases where it would normally flip over to the BCC that it's not going to, and you're going to suffer an outage, but your BCC is not going to be long-term compromised if an attack comes in. So I think that's an area that we can really probably as a community learn from this and say we really haven't thought that through, or if some people have, they need to share more of that so we can all learn from them.
I think it's going to play out through with the ICS for ICS stuff too, like moratorium on changes. I
Mm.
know we did that at the power company before a storm actually approached.
Hmm.
Moratorium. Now I think they only do 4 database changes a year, but
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
one of those things where just think about the mom and pop electric companies. They're not under the big NERC SIPs, so they may find this more useful. I would expect the bigger bulk electric folks roll their eyes perhaps and go, "Oh yeah, we already cover all this stuff. We've already
yeah.
got all the best in breed, best practices nailed down." But it might matter to a municipal electric company.
Yep. Okay. Anything else on Ukraine before we move on beyond just again, we're just watching and hoping and trying trying to do whatever each of us can do, but at this point we're kind of isolated here.
Yeah, I don't have any further words, but we'll just keep our eyes open, as they say in intel or in the army or whatever. Stay frosty.
Yep.
We just got to keep diligent watch.
Right. Okay. Next topic. Cyber Safety Review Board was announced. What it had actually been announced before. It was part of Solarium. It eventually, I think it had been approved, but we finally we learned who was going to be on it. There's 15 people that are on it. CISA Director Jen Easterly is going to manage it. There's some people higher up in CISA that are officially in charge of it, but sounds like she's gonna manage the group and be the more day-to-day person on that. 15 people. I didn't see anyone I would really qualify as or classify as ICS or OT people. And this was the mission of the board. The CSRB, the Cyber Safety Review Board, will review and assess significant cybersecurity events so the government, industry, and the broader security community can better protect our national networks and infrastructure. And the first project or the first incident they're going to look at is the Log4j incident. I'll tell you, my initial reaction to this was kind of excitement when I heard the name, and then kind of a slump, after I heard it, because I heard safety, and a lot of people have been talking about the National Transportation Safety Board and their
Right.
investigation of incidents and near misses. A lot of focuses have been on near misses and how we as an industry could learn a lot from that same sort of approach. So when I heard safety in the title, I thought that really meant we were on something like this. But I didn't really see this anything related in here to safety. To me, I'm not sure that word really belongs even in this. It sounds like security. It could be a very useful organization, but I didn't really see this having any impact on our community.
Yeah,
What was your take on it?
yeah, it was my. I was like safety. Same thing. And so my background, engineer, safety, those things
Yeah.
mean a whole different thing to us. So, but I get the intent of it, and we've got some friends on the board,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would hope that if something arises, or when something arises that involves our world, that they'll reach out to us, the community, you know.
Yep. But one of the other things that struck me is, to me, it seemed more. So you have 15 very impressive people. They're not involved actively in ICS or OT, but like you say,
No.
some of the names are tangentially associated with us. Some of them have spoken at S4 before,
Mm-hmm.
but they're very important, busy people. I don't see them digging in and spending 6 months out of their year working on these investigations. So what I was wondering is if this is just some high level strategic sort of group that is going to say we should create this effort. It seems to me more than that, or if they're going to have a large amount of staff that will actually be able to dig into this
Yeah, maybe they
sort of
spin
thing.
up
That
a.
was unclear to me.
Yeah, I don't really know either way. I guess we could ask Katie. But my assumption is maybe they would spin up a Tiger team under them and get the technical folks. Not that these folks aren't technical; they absolutely are. But like you said, they're busy and they can't stop what they're doing to do the analysis on this. So maybe they spin up a team to run this down and then provide feedback to the government, back to industry.
Yeah. And they're talking, and even when you say log4j, that's a huge issue.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I think maybe we're, as I said, my initial excitement, maybe we were still left wanting for the concept of, an ICS incident review board or something like that, that would actually dive into these incidents and near misses and actually do kind of what the NTSB does. So again, I don't see anything wrong with this group. It's certainly great group of 15 people. We'll have to see what the output is, but it doesn't seem to be anything that's really a play for us.
yeah. If we had an ICS SRB, uh, there's two ways to approach it: have an ICS SRB or roll cyber up into the NT Transportation Safety Review Board, or any of the other verticals, because each vertical has their own. FERC, NERC had their own
Mm-hmm.
roll up cyber through that. I would imagine they would. Um, but it's maybe not codified in some other verticals, that it's not as mature as nuclear and electric sector. So
Yeah, Brian asks, please discuss if the team would have engaged on solar winds. I think that they would have. I think the cyber safety review board, that was a big enough issue across the
yeah,
sectors. I think log4j, solar winds, any widespread, highly public incident, they probably would have. I think, Brian, what would be more of an interesting question is, would they have done anything with Colonial Pipeline? Because that is more of obviously it was a ransomware incident. Ransomware is a widespread problem. What would they have said? We need to do an analysis of what happened there and issue a lessons learned report.
yeah.
But I think solar winds would have fallen in. Do you think this group would look at solar winds, Chris?
I would say so, because it impacted thousands and thousands, potentially thousands of victims. And so when it's that big, it's almost like those other vulnerabilities in the past, Blue Keep, any of those that are just so wide.
Yeah, but they're going to have to be, depending on how they do it, they're going to have to be choosy. is
Sure.
very selective on what they do, because especially if they work at it as 15. Now, if they said, okay, 3 people are going to take each incident and report back to the group of 15, I I think it'd be fascinating. I don't know if we'll ever know, but to just see how organizationally Jen is going to run this. I'm going to have her on stage on the middle day, the Wednesday at S4. Maybe
Right.
I'll ask her
That's
how
a
she's
good.
going to
That's a
run that.
good. Well, I think they'll have a plan until the next Log4j happens,
Yeah.
and then they'll actually, refine it. I think
Yep.
it's probably unrefined now, and it will be more refined as something happens. Just like when you have anything else.
Sure. Sure. Well, let's go to the third topic, and I think this is maybe the more controversial, meaty one. And since you're joining me, Chris Sistrunk, technical manager at Mandiant, you have a sort of a dog related in this fight, because I want the next topic is these annual threat reports.
Mm-hmm.
And and obviously
Yeah,
Mandiant puts out. Do you guys put out an annual report? I know you put out many reports. I'm not
we
sure you
do.
put out an annual.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the M trends. That's it's kind of like the overall of the top things that we have responded to.
Yeah.
So, but there's some others that are out there that are similar.
Yeah, and again, I tend to look at the ones that are more OT focused. So I've
Right.
probably read your report, but for example, I know what triggered this topic is Dragos put out theirs. They put out their 2021 year in review report.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see, Dragos ICS OT cybersecurity year in review 2021, and Nozomi puts out one, and Clarity puts out one, and probably some of them do semi-annual. I think
Yeah.
Kaspersky even puts out one. Focused on OT.
Right.
Uh,
I remember the ICS CERT used to do it too.
yeah, I don't see them doing that. But
No, they're not doing it.
that was more on their activity, wasn't it, than on the what was going on. It was
Well,
more of
I think it had a summary of what was going on, and then their activity came kind of, we responded to for blah blah blah
yeah.
in this sector or whatever.
So I have kind of a mixed reaction to these. I tend not to put them in the Friday news and notes. I almost put the Dragos one in the Friday news and notes. They kind of were one of the first to do this. There certainly gets the most buzz in the industry just because of their marketing prowess, and the pure OT focused. But in a sense, they're a little bit advertorial, right? They're they're definitely providing useful information, but they're also, essentially, I mean, it's not a disconnect that the biggest finding is you need better visibility. And one of the second biggest finding is you need an incident response, and these vendors sell visibility and incident response. So it's obviously in their interest to hype up, or not to hype up, but to at least represent the threat and make people very aware of the threat and make people aware of the need. So there's a certain issue to that. Um, what are your thoughts on these reports? First of all, are they useful, and if so, how, in your mind?
I would say to maybe new folks, it's useful.
Mm-hmm.
But to folks like me, we're keeping track of a lot of these all the time anyway. But that's just my opinion, you
Hmm.
know. And so, uh, I would say getting more people involved with ICS OT security is a good thing. And
Yeah.
if those help do that, that's great. I realize that I'm not going to play vendor favorites here,
Yeah.
and so it's just like, hey, if we can get more help and more visibility, I think that's a win. But each company probably has their own metrics and what's the success for them or not for doing these reports. So
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that about yourself, what you get out of them, because I took so many notes on this and they're scribbled all over the page. But one of the things I had was I wrote down is, who is the audience for these?
yeah, that's a
And
good point.
what are they supposed to walk away with? Because typically like if I'm giving a keynote or something like that, I think about who am I talking to, and when they leave, what action do I want them to take? And certainly if the threat intel community is not the audience for this, because people like yourselves or people that are really watching threat, even if you're not in threat intel, let's say you're just responsible for monitoring threat in your company, you get better feeds, and all these companies provide more information and better feeds, as does Mandiant, than what are in these reports, and more timely information. I wonder, like, when you hear these funny names, like in this report, you had Costovite, Kamacite, Etheria. I don't even know how to pronounce ERYTHRIT, Eartherite, or something like that. I'm not sure how useful it is to say Kamacite is now doing this or something like that. I don't know. If I'm an asset owner, I'm not sure how useful that is. Maybe some of the steps are useful, and maybe this is saying to me, as someone who doesn't get this information, maybe it says I should look at this closer. So maybe I learn about something new, but I don't know that I get a lot out of it there.
Right. And there's different philosophies in threat intelligence, with the naming, but to an engineer, and that's what I am, we look at the tactics and techniques,
mm-hmm.
and
which they did have in there.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. And then also the mitigations. And sometimes the mitigations are simple and well known and not sexy, but it's just got to do what you got to do. And that's from my point of view, that's what I get out of those things.
Yeah.
Because every other, every company names it different, and that can be confusing.
Yeah. And I'm going to try to get someone from Dragos on. I'm talking to them now to talk a little bit more about threat intel, because I'm not really a threat intel guy. I mean, that's not what I do. I don't follow threat that much. So I think that the underlying products, not so much the reports, but the underlying products, I could see where they could have more value. But I get the feeling, when I say who is the audience, I think it's not the security community. It's not the people actively involved, because I think if you're actively involved, most of this. And I think you're supposed to walk away with fear, which is one of the things I'm not crazy about these reports. They're kind of scary. It's like, hey, this is to scare people that don't follow this as closely. You don't have to comment. You're kind of in the business, so you're kind of in a tough part. But that's my part. I would also say that then when I look at the recommendations, for example, the top 4 recommendations they had: lacking OT visibility, poor security perimeter, external remote connections, separate IT OT user management. I mean, the last one is maybe the only one that I don't see frequently, although it's a good practice, separate IT OT user management. I don't know that we really learn that much. Now, maybe it's just a message we have to hammer over and over and over again. So again, I'm not sure really what this is accomplishing, except maybe these reports are designed to show, hey, we have these capabilities. This is the type of information we can provide. Get worried, and here's some basic information is how I read them mostly.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I know you're in a tough position here. So let me just go on a little bit more on this. But the funny thing is, as you read these, and I don't know how close you read these, but I try to read them closely. The funny thing is, you do get some just nuggets. Like, so if for a guy like me that follows this more closely and is not a threat intel person, and I don't really care the difference between Costovite and Kamacite, you get this. For example, they do an interesting patch analysis in there, and they said that in their view, 4% of the patches required immediate action by the ICS company. They're the asset owners. So it's saying of all the patches that came out in 2021, 4% you needed to patch on a regular or expedited level. The rest of them, just good security practices, were all that was required. I totally agree with that. And I think that's a really important fact that is kind of flying in the face of what we hear with cyber hygiene. Does
Yeah.
that number surprise you at all?
No,
No,
no, it
it's right
doesn't.
in line.
I mean,
Uh,
I don't have exact things, but even from my experience back in the power company, there had to be a really, really, really good darn reason you're going to patch, you know, the system.
well, and my guess is those 4%. If we went to my back to my ICS patch decision tree, my guess is that 4% is in the attack path that's accessible from outside. That's maybe some things in the DMZ, maybe your security perimeter device, maybe your remote access system, maybe some key patch and AD or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
I like the nuggets. One of the mandate ones is like dwell time, and
yep.
but those numbers can give us if we track them over time, see if things are getting better or worse or indifferent.
Now, by dwell time, you mean the time between when the attack or when the exploit was introduced or when the device was compromised and when it was identified?
Correct.
Yep.
And for
Yep.
instance, Mandiant has seen that go down from over 100 days several years ago to like 24 days as of last year. They
Okay.
haven't come out with this year's report, but I think we can all know that ransomware has you can detect it because it's a lot sooner. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a lot of those things. Another one we saw that was interesting was it went from mostly external detections like FBI warning a company you're compromised to internal detections where they're getting the SOC is
Mm.
detecting their own incidents. And so we've seen those trends. Those kind of things. I look for those.
Mm. Okay.
So
Two other numbers that I found were interesting. One was 65% of the ransomware that they identified, which was, I think, like 211 companies, was in manufacturing. Now, this doesn't mean I'm manufacturing systems, the ICS or DCS that was manufacturing it, but in a company that did manufacturing. That number, and actually, if I get them on, I want to dive a little deeper into that. That's an interesting number because a lot of times, like we used to have some databases that would come up with numbers saying, hey, the water sector is being attacked more. But that was because they did a bunch of presentations to the water sector and got a bunch of water sector information, So I I wonder how much that is based on the size of their population, because manufacturing is a lot of different things. It's automobile, it's food and beverage, it's packaged goods, it's textiles, it's all, and they list all the different ones. Whereas if you were to compare that to mining, there's typically a small number of large mining companies that would even be on the radar. So I
right.
I don't know, but that 65% was an interesting number. Does that number surprise you at all?
I'm not sure. It's like one of those things where what kind of manufacturing is it? A broad spectrum of
Yeah, it's
manufacturing?
everything.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. So
everything.
that's okay. That doesn't tell me a whole lot, but it
Yeah.
does tell me that ransomware is impacting businesses that may probably don't have cybersecurity uh, like requirements,
Hmm.
either internally or from the government.
Yeah. And
And we already
well,
know that. So
they do break down the numbers by the manufacturing into sectors. So there's like they cover, like I think they break it down into over 10 different sectors, so you can see how much in each one in the manufacturing. So that was interesting. And the last number, and you really don't comment on this one because I don't want you to get in trouble, but I was surprised this actually made it in the report. It said 86% of Dragos. Well, here I'll read it exactly as quoted. 86% of its services, so it's being Dragos services customers, had limited to no visibility into their ICS environment. 86%. Now, that number, if you said 86% that had an incident didn't have visibility, that wouldn't surprise me at all. But this is 86% of it services customers, which means that most of their services customers are not using their product. 86% of their services customers are not using the Dragos product, which is kind of in line with my thought that, the real power of Dragos is their services. And please, again, you're your competitor and such. I don't want you to get in trouble or even be called for bias. So no need to comment, but I just wanted for my audience, I found that number, first of all, shocking that it was revealed and shocking that it was so large. Now you could look, if you want to spin it positively for Dragos, you could say, well, that's 86% of their services that are good targets for new products. That now they'll see, hey, they should buy the Dragos product because it would have helped them. But it's showing that there's a lot of service customers that love their services, but don't yet have their products for whatever reason you choose that to be. So with that, we'll set that aside. Let me bring it back to you, Chris. One of the things that I do find useful, though, I will say, both from Mandiant, Dragos, Clarity, and others, is I find the reports you put out on incidents and specific vulnerabilities to be of great value. I mean, the Mandiant SolarWinds report is a classic example, right? I mean, that was just beautiful report. Dragos has done nice reports on a variety of, just about every ICS incident. Dragos puts out a high quality report. Clarity put out something very good on Moxa recently. And even if you look, there's a small company, Limes, out of Austria, that did a great report on a building automation hack and how they recovered from it. So there's a lot of quality reports. I think for those in the industry, speaking for myself, I find the reports on specific incidents and events to be much more useful than these year in review reports.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we have a lot of great talent in our industry, no matter where anybody works. And we've got friends and colleagues across many companies, and we're all passionate about what we do. So that kind of leads into how good these reports come out.
Yeah.
Because because it's pretty easy if you're a charlatan making a FUD marketing report about this. Oh, and buy our product because it'll protect you from.
Yeah.
Those are easy to spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And call out. So we can't do that as an industry,
right,
and keep our credibility. So
right. Now we got Brandon. We'll just put this up before we go to wins, fails, and predictions. Could their qualifier limited be what leads to that percentage being so high? Perhaps. I guess maybe that's a question for me to ask them if they come on. Limited. I mean, I would imagine you could say very few systems have 100% monitored. I mean, to me, it actually would be silly. I think there's a lot of the 80-20 rule in effect here, where you can get you can get 80% of the value monitoring 20% of your assets. Now, I'm not saying you should stop at 20%, but that would be a good first cut. And I've seen I've seen asset owners do that highly successfully. But yes, I guess maybe you could say that they had their product in and it was just monitoring a few segments, and that could be part of the 86%. That's a really good comment, Brandon. They could have their product in there, just not monitoring everything. Okay, let's shift now. Wins, fails, and predictions. Chris, I'm going to jump in first with a win because you brought it up. I would say a win is that I haven't seen too much egregious use of Ukraine in marketing by the ICS security community at this point. A little bit here and there. And there's some things that you could say maybe cross the line a little bit. I haven't seen really terrible things like we typically see in an incident saying, hey, this is going on. This is why you need our product now. So I will give the vendors credit for not doing that. That was a positive for me. As you talk about with those annual reports, I don't see that happening. Do you have a win for the month?
Yeah, I'll say the SZA shields up. That's a perfect win, I think, coming from hurricane instant response. Hey, like you mentioned earlier, we've a lot of things that we say in cybersecurity have been said for over a decade, but the shields up is like, yeah, we really mean it, and
Hmm.
this is something we are serious about. It's like, okay,
Yep.
this is how we, yeah. So I think that's a simple but effective win, and hats off to SZA for doing that.
Yeah, I would say that, again, it's probably a success story, but there was an article that came out, I think yesterday. So I guess it was officially March 1st, not February, but where Microsoft found something, contacted the government, and then CISA contacted Ukraine, various places in Eastern Europe, and basically shut something down within hours that maybe would have taken days or a week before. And again,
Yeah.
that was an example of this information sharing that, I give information sharing a black eye a lot. you know, we've heard so much about it and it had very few wins, but that article actually showed, I think, a pretty clear example of a win. And I got to give them credit for that. Um, I also would say a win would be, and this is just for all of us, the fact that COVID is in February went, whew, that's just such good news. I, as an event holder, maybe I'm personally biased and just loving this, but the fact that this terrible thing might finally be coming to an end is just a win. We really saw huge decreases in February. How about a fail?
So I don't know if it's a fail, but we talked about a little bit about the TSA SD2 stuff,
Right.
and a lot of the problems that I've heard and seen the most is getting exceptions that make sense. And the exceptions, it's like a little two-sentence thing about submitting exceptions, but when you look at submitting exceptions for like NERC it's like a 20-page,
Hmm.
well thought out, well argued, well beat up process. And I think TSA could have done a little bit better job explaining how to manage exceptions, perhaps.
Hmm.
Even though this wasn't, it came out last year, right? But
Yeah.
they're having to do the exceptions now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, so then I think that's timely because it's we go through this. I mean, this is one of the things, and SIP lived this. I mean, you lived this because you were with the utility when SIP first was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
This is true of any regulatory sort of thing. There's the regulation comes out, and then everyone tries to understand what it means, and then they try to understand how they need to enforce it and how they'll be audited and all this. And there's this process, and you're saying that they probably could have started that exception process with a little more thought, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Is that right?
I
Yeah.
think so.
What did you think about Patrick's Miller? I I think it was tongue in cheek, and of course I missed the sarcasm font. But I think he tweeted that, or no, maybe it was Rob Lee, that nothing brought the industry together more than those terrible regulations, like that it like spurred this pipeline community into action and cohesion and talking to each other and figuring
Yeah.
out what to do that just hadn't happened in over a decade. That just this one really bad thing just really pushed them. What did you think of that? Is there
I,
some truth to that?
it's like we're all united in our response, like, and the back channels that happened after that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Huh.
yeah,
Well, sometimes you need something to upset to
Brian, Chris.
upset the status quo, even if it's the wrong thing. Maybe then there's probably some control loop analogy here that not being an engineer, I don't understand, but there's probably something there. Uh, My fail, and I'm curious to get your thought on this if you saw it. I actually have two fails. One was that 60 Minutes story.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Uh, it was the Metcalf thing from a long time ago. It wasn't that they were wrong that such a thing happened, but why bring up someone
yeah,
shooting substations? I don't know how many years ago, 8 years ago or something like that.
9 years
And
ago, yeah.
and the people that they had on, I was kind of like, these are the people that, some guy that searches the internet as the expert. I know Graham Messick. He was actually he was the producer that came down to do the 60 Minute segment on Stuxnet down at S412. And I was just, he's a quality producer. I was just shocked that made it through their filter. I'm not sure what happened there.
Well,
Would that fall in the fail category for you too?
yeah, yeah, because if they would have had people like me or you or others just like still more worried about squirrels, back to you in sports, Bob, and,
Yeah.
and that's, you know,
Yeah. So that was one fail. The other fail, and this one might not be fair, but I have to say it. I thought Eugene Kaspersky's tweet, we welcome the start of negotiations to resolve the current situation, invasion,
yeah,
current
the
situation in
choice of
Ukraine, and hope
words.
that they will lead to a cessation of hostilities and compromise. Uh, we believe that dialogue is the only possible instrument for resolving conflict, wars, and good for everyone. I'm, on one hand, he's in an impossible situation, regardless of what is in his heart or his mind. And I know and I know some really good people at Kaspersky.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't want to cast aspersions on individual people or such, but you just can't. I don't know what you do, but that's not what you do. That was just a fail. It would have just I
Precise
don't
words matter. Precise words matter. And what did Mike Asante say that?
I don't know, but
Yeah. I mean, you have to be you. If you don't choose the right word, your intent could be lost.
yeah, and again, he probably couldn't even if he wanted to. He might be at risk if he tweeted what he thought. So I don't
Yeah.
know that there's a win there. I thought the second tweet was better, just saying they were doing their best to keep their products up and running for their customers. To me, maybe it's full stop there, but I just thought that was a fail. But again, maybe it's not fair of me because I'm not sitting in his shoes. That's probably an impossible situation.
It's
Uh,
yeah.
what about prediction? Do you have any prediction?
Oh well, as far as predictions, I think we could have made the same predictions 10 years ago and made the same predictions today as far as ICS security. But I predict that ICS for ICS is going to be more successful than we think.
Why would we have said that 10 years ago?
Well, I'm just saying it. That wasn't about my comment about ICS for ICS, but a lot of the things that we said 10 years ago would still apply today. So I think I was talking to Rolf Langner or Perry Peterson one time, and they said, "Yeah, we went back and did an assessment 10 years later, and I could have given them exact same copy of the first report." You know, and, and a lot of the same things we say over and over and over again. But going back to my prediction, I think
Mhm.
that ICS for ICS is going to be more successful than we think, is because I'm getting inquiries from regular folks in NIMS and incident command structure that are not involved with ICS at all, asking to
Mhm.
get involved. And it's exciting to see that communities that wouldn't normally be brought together are hey saying this is a great idea.
Have you been? I know that what is it? EEI or somebody else has something where the various utilities agree to help each other.
Yeah,
Does that extend to cyber incidents as well?
as far as I know, not yet. But
Okay.
that's where you have the mutual assistance from. I
Yeah.
mean, Entergy won that award like 20 something years in a row,
Mhm.
and from all of the instant response that they did for, you know, grid Mother Nature response, you
Yeah.
know. And so I think having the ICS for ICS is a good place to start with that, because I
Yeah.
don't think the linemen kind of those kind of things don't really jive the same with that. But
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, when I heard it from when Megan presented that at S420, I was like, yeah, makes sense. This is what I like to do with these things. Like it was a PLC top 20 list and other things. I said, wow,
yeah,
that's a great idea. Who's going to do it? You know, and
yeah, yeah.
and then
Oh,
try to push someone to do it and try to publicize it and help them out that way. But Megan and ISA, GCA, and some people in the government and others have made that a reality. We're very pleased. Monday, April 18th on stage 3, they're going to actually have a live exercise. I believe it's from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. That is free. So actually, if you're a woman in ICS, you can come down on Monday, go to the ICS for ICS exercise, go to the Women in ICS social event Monday night, attend all day Tuesday, go to the Cabana sessions Tuesday night, and that's all free. So it's really there's a lot of free things there for women. For men, um, sorry, just ICS for ICS is free, but you're welcome to come down that whether you come into S4 or not. My predict. I wish I had a strong prediction. I don't know why I don't. If I feel so, I guess I'll make it a prediction. I don't think there's going to be any major regulation in any of the ICS sectors on cybersecurity this year, this fiscal year. I just don't see, and that's kind of an easy one. I don't see the government getting it done between now and October with, now with Ukraine, with inflation, with the election coming. I think it's going to be another Congress where we go by another year without more sectors getting regulated.
yeah. I can see that, because typically no one plans for these. And back to what my distribution line safety leader when I joined the Power Enemies safety, been there like 30, 40 years, and he says safety rules are written in blood, and blood's got
Mm-hmm.
to have to happen before regulations and rules are written. So
Yeah.
maybe that's it, unless there's another event that happens that we're not expecting.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's true. And I don't, did you read Dick Clark's book, Dick Clark's Cassandra's book?
No, I don't
Now
know
there
that
is a
one.
section in there on the ICS world with the focus is on the early work that Joe Weiss did. That's quite good, but you'll obviously know most of that. But I would think the chapter on mining is exactly what you talked about. When you look at mining regulations, it was nothing, tragedy, a little bit of regulation, years and years, tragedy, more regulation, tragedy, more regulation, and
Yeah.
you know
Same
it
with
was.
the offshore oil. You know, I mean, there was some until the tragic incident in the uh, northern North Sea. Gosh, I can't talk today. And then it ramped up again after the Deepwater Horizon.
Yep, yep.
And
Okay. Okay, well, why don't we'll end it there now. Chris, you are on Twitter at Chris Sistrunk. If you're watching, you've seen that up there. Is that the best place to reach you, or is there another place that you're pretty
you
active?
could, yeah, you can. My direct messages are open there on Twitter, but you can also hit me up on LinkedIn. If you want to send me an email, Chris Sistrunk or chris.sistrunk at mandiant.com. But I'm on all the platforms, so just hit me up if you have any questions or want to do something together or whatever.
Thanks a lot, Chris, and I will see you in less than 2 months.
Yeah, that's gonna be exciting. I think I'm gonna spend
Yep.
my entire time hugging everyone.
Okay, take care,
Yeah,
Chris.
thanks.
Bye.